Okay, cool. Whenever you're ready.
Hiya.
Oh my god. The year was 2007. I was 14 years old when I first watched this film. I shouldn't have got into the cinema because it was 15, but my friend looked older and he managed to blag my way in there. So I watched a fantastic movie, which all other movies have paled in comparison, and my expectations have been just completely worsened because of it. I'm talking about Edgar Wright's second of the Cornetto trilogy, Hot Fuzz.
This is about to go off. That is amazing.
Right on time, out of nowhere. That's not gonna fit over my head. That's not gonna.
The cuddly monkey.
I can't put it around my chin, so it's stuck in my teeth. Slashing my gums. I'm a slasher of gums.
Poison!
Oh my god.
So good.
Poison!
Oh, don't.
I'll kiss thy lips.
Aptly some poison.
Less than poison doth yet and on him.
I don't know much of this film. What is that, Latin?
No, it's just shit Shakespeare.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Bang! Yeah. Love me!
So, of the two of you, who's seen Bad Boys 2? Just you.
A long time ago.
Who's seen Point Break?
I have seen Point Break.
Who's seen Super Cop?
I have seen Super Cop.
It stopped.
I have seen Super Cop.
Have you seen all of Danny's films then?
I've seen
Not
none
all.
of them.
Not all of Danny's.
I mean, I don't mean Castle Grayskull. I mean,
No,
just
no.
like the ones you mentioned.
I've seen a majority of them.
I think I've only seen the start of Point Break. I only remember surfing. I don't remember any policing.
Was Leslie Tiller fucking murdered?
She tripped and fell on her own shoes.
Oh, great. We have a very clever woman in our presence. Been a murder.
Somehow.
Thank you, Danny!
Oh, murder.
I do think it's one of the films I've seen that's had the most jokes in it of any film. It's just back to back. It's constant.
I mean, I think it's back-to-back jokes that are actually funny, instead of just like, here's a joke, here's a joke, here's a joke, here's a joke.
Even if it's just
For 90
some
minutes.
detail in the background,
Yeah,
it's just constant.
I think that's the thing I love the most. And in terms of the whole trilogy being Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, I think the order it goes in for me is Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, and then The World's End. But what they did in the second film, it completely kind of refined the experiences from from Shaun of the Dead, and it streamlined it into this really, really perfect storytelling kind of just organic narrative where things just flowed, and even if it was comedic, it still didn't break apart away from the actual storyline. If it was serious, it got back to being very comedic very, very quickly. It all complemented each other really, really well. More so than Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead was either very, very somber towards the end, or it was very, very funny, and then there was a very shit hits the fan moment, and the tone of the film completely changes. And I think for The World's End, I was like, I haven't seen the trailers for this, and going into it, I'm not sure what this is, and I'm still watching it, I'm still not sure what it is. I'm like, why is it called The World's End? And it's written just as tightly as Hot Fuzz, but then at the same time, it's like, it's a bit too fantastical. It's not grounded enough for it to be having, it's not grounded enough to have the same humour as Hot Fuzz in a way. And I say that about the first film was fucking zombies for fuck's sake. So
I find World End's a bit more serious dark rather than funny dark.
it's sadder.
Yeah.
It is a lot sadder.
It hits home a lot harder.
Yeah.
The other two's issues feel a bit
Yeah, their relationship and
surreal
background.
and just feel like something out of a cartoon, whereas him having actual alcoholism and problem and depression.
Yeah, like they
It's
find out he's
all
got
about when
his
it comes-
hospital bracelet on at the end, and it's it feels like not that it's something that you could make a joke out of, but it's something that just brings the entire tone of the film really serious for a bit.
It's funny if you don't know the backstory behind. Is it Andy King?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Sorry if it's not. You're not gonna watch this, Simon. Yeah, it's It's more so, yeah, it feels...
Gary King.
Is it Gary King?
The other one's called Andy.
Who's Andy?
Nick Frost is called Andy.
No, I'm to merge them together in a Photoshop image now. More work for me.
Because it's...
More work.
Gay! Because they cross out the R and it's just gay. And that's
I
like...
forgot about that.
the glee on his face when he tells that story. It's just the funniest thing to me. Just somebody giggling at the word. Some child making a joke calling someone gay.
And a middle-aged man getting offended over it. Yes, that's perfect storytelling right there. Have you fired one gun up in the air while going ah?
No.
Have you fired two guns up in the air while going ah?
No.
Okay. I don't know if you've seen like the behind the scenes of all of like the trilogy, but you can see how like juvenile, sort of like the table reads and the story, the script writing was.
If you go through this, you can kind of see the entire film
in flip chart form.
This is now in the 21st century is now how they're going to release some films on the internet. It's just like that.
In terms of like, it's a bunch of kids who are doing like a major film together for like the first time, and it's all like tits and poo and arse on like whiteboards and markers, and then by the time Hot Fuzz came around, it's like, yeah, we know what we're doing. We're kind of in perfect rhythm right now, and it's kind of like, yeah, this is just us at our absolute peak. And I feel as though with the third film, it's kind of like, yeah, we know what we're doing, but we don't have enough innovation to really sort of like create something truly original in terms of something that you haven't seen before in terms of our like writing and comedic beats and everything like that. So it felt a bit worn out towards the end of the trilogy, if you want to call it that loosely. I don't understand how people are calling it that, but yeah, I mean, it's not though, is it?
I wouldn't argue that it's not a trilogy.
I'd say it's trilogy and theme.
Yeah, like
the
some.
theme is ice cream.
It's like an isolated town or village has some form of a supernatural thing, and some narcissistic person doesn't notice it necessarily straight away. And then yeah, tits and bum jokes.
I mean, what more could you want?
And then a colourable cornetto. A little period.
Yes. I don't know. I just guess there's something just unbelievably I find it unbelievably funny when a police officer does something just completely stupid and out of what they should be perceived to be doing, because they are supposed to be like the gold standard, and how they perceive themselves is like, yeah, we look at the bill, that's us. Look at us during riots, that's us. Look at me attempting to jump over this fence and failing miserably. Don't look at that anymore. That doesn't exist. I don't know, there's always just something funny about trying to find flaws in perfect characters, which I just genuinely adore. And when flawed characters are acting flawed, it's just like, this is to be expected, and you're goofy, and it's like Shaun of the Dead, he's a fuck up and he keeps fucking up, and it's kind of expect that, and in The World's End, he's a fuck up and he keeps fucking up. It's like, well, we kind of expect that, and everyone around him kind of expects that. But in Hot Fuzz, it's like, you're perfect, but you fuck up, and it's funny to me. It's Schadenfreude, I think that's the word, and I'm just like, yeah.
I think he plays it really, really straight as well.
Yeah.
Rather than being some, like the crazy fuck up that's super emotional. I think that just makes it 10 times funnier, because he'll just deadpan it. Like, you don't see him really laugh until the end.
No. Yeah, I guess that's why I like the stoicism of it, to be honest. It's just, and then Danny. I can't see Nick Frost as anything else but Danny, and he tries really hard to break away from that. I'm just like, I just want more Danny now from here to the end of time. This is who you really are. You're not even acting at this point.
I think that's the difference in World's End as well, is that his character is so flip opposite to what he'd already done, that it doesn't feel as light-hearted. Well, it's not.
I really like him in World's End. I think he plays that like middle-aged man that takes himself way too seriously.
Yeah.
Like, come on, you're 40, your rugby game isn't that serious.
It's true.
I think it's with his character in World's End, it's not as funny, so the moments where he breaks are the moments where you just like, yeah, like into the action of it, rather than like a comedic relief moment, which is what Danny is.
Yeah, like he's purely comedic relief.
But there's quite a gap between the two films anyway, isn't there?
What? Hot Fuzz.
From when they came out, yeah, Hot Fuzz and World's End.
There was a huge gap. It was like, what, 6 years?
Yeah.
With respect, sir, you can't just make people disappear.
Yes, I can. I'm the chief inspector.
I remember reading the synopsis and there was nothing on it. And they said, there's a gang of middle-aged people trying to get to a pub, and I was like, I'm like, they're not wrong now. Like looking back, it's just like
that is what the plot of the film is.
And I'm just like, you're a bunch of assholes. Another great film, Slaughterhouse Rules. I strongly recommend you go watch that. Katie's seal of approval.
No.
You don't want to talk about it?
No.
I mean, now's your chance.
Oh, I just...
Sergeant Angel to the manager's office, please. Manager's office, Sergeant Angel.
Would you say the only reason you like... I brought this up yesterday, to be fair. The only reason you like Simon Pegg and Nick Frost is because of Edgar Wright?
I'd say their peak is Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
But I also really like Nick Frost in Cuban Fury. I really like Simon Pegg in Run Fat Boy Run, and
yeah, he's good enough, to be fair.
I just think individually they're really, really good actors. And I think even in Slaughterhouse Rules, the bits that either of them are in are sold really well. I just don't like the rest of the film.
I've never been disappointed with an Edgar Wright project, ever. I think that's safe to say. Between Space and half of Ant-Man.
Baby Driver.
Baby Driver, absolutely
Wonderful.
fantastic. I watched his first film called Dead Right, and I was like, this is fun in its own right as well, because you can see all of the little tricks that he's managed to sort of develop over the years, all start from his little village in the middle of nowhere, which is also the main setting for Hot Fuzz. And it's just really, really endearing to see something so shit.
It's nice to see how he stays true to his ideals right from the start. This is the kind of director I'm going to be, let's carry on with it.
I think that's fucking magical, to be fair.
Going back to Hot Fuzz standing out of the trilogy, would you say, or what are your thoughts on that the main lead in World's End and Shaun of the Dead are not the stoic character, whereas Hot Fuzz is the other one that has one stoic character and the rest are the almost like cartoon character?
I think... What do I think about that?
Just if you think that contributes, do you reckon?
Definitely. I think that's half the fun, and I think that's also part of what makes it like 10 times more British. Like, the Cornetto trilogy in general, I think is just so British, and I think anyone can relate to being the person stood in the room that's just like, what am I listening to? Like, what are all of these people around me talking about? Like, being in a pub and just hearing bits of conversation that you're just like, what?
I think, I think it's very rare. I think it's very rare for someone to be, in terms of like the Gary King scenario and the Sean scenario, where they are the proverbial black holes. I think people relate to being surrounded by flawed, or always having this sense of like, well, I'm not the flawed one, everything around me is flawed. And I think that's why people received Hot Fuzz a lot more positively, because it's more like, I'm surrounded by idiots all the time, and as a result, I'm not getting dragged down by this. And I think that is a lot more relatable to a lot more people, in the sense that if you want your hero to be an out-and-out hero, then he needs to be stoic, he needs to be towing the line, he needs to be perfect.
Yeah, he doesn't really fuck up at any point. Like, even when he's makes the wrong call on who the murderer is, he's still correct. So even then, it's just, oh, you're just missing that bit. So he's never fucks up, he's never wrong. He's just, but that's the whole point of the film right at the start, is just, you need to chill a bit, you need to let go of that perfection.
I think it becomes nauseating because if you take that and put it into a superhero genre, if you're a flawed character, I mean, like talk like A-tier ones, if you take Batman and you replace him as being completely flawed and idiotic and stupid and hopeless, it just becomes Deadpool.
It becomes a character you don't want to root for.
Yeah, it's like...
Because you want him to see his comeuppance for crumbs,
Yeah, it's like, well, with Deadpool, it's not really like I want to see him win, it's more so I want to see him be an idiot and try to be a superhero, as opposed to be like, he needs to save everything all the time. And it becomes very, very tedious.
I see the first Deadpool sets up, Deadpool's an asshole.
Yeah.
But the villain is more of an asshole.
Yeah.
And it's got the smarmy look that you want to punch. You want to see punched.
That's what's different between the type of guy Sean is and Gary is that Sean's just like a lovable moron, and you're just like, oh, just come on, it'll be fine, you can kind of get there in the end. But with Gary, it's more like, you see him doing the fuck-ups, and it goes on and it goes on, and it's just, you're with the other characters, you are kind of sat there like, oh, for every time. But then that's why it kind of hits so hard at the end when you do find out that he's been doing all these like programs in hospital and that, and you're just like, oh, he is trying, and that kind of.
Who, Gary?
Yeah, so you kind of see his stupidity and fuck ups throughout the film a bit more as him actually trying to be that person again, trying to be his mates that are better.
Do you want to see a magic? Do you want to see a magic trick?
Never mind.
Yeah.
Hey, what's this?
I think the things that I find the funniest are like the little one-liners and the sound effects and the use of the music.
Yeah.
The music consistently throughout.
The music and the sound effects. There's a technical name for that. I can't remember the name of it, but me. Yeah, I think Edgar Wright has a fantastic way of actually just using that in his films to just show cues in people like picking things up or thinking thoughts. That's really difficult for me to say.
I think the first time I really noticed it is the scene where they're in the pub at 11 o'clock on Nicholas Angel's first day, as you know.
Well, before his Wednesday, right? Huh? Before his, no, the morning of the day.
Yeah. And one of the Andes is like, shotgun the glass. And then that ding above Danny's head goes off, and he's just instantly like, action film mode, like, oh my god, what is this guy? And it's just consistent. The other one is when, at the end, when they kind of reveal Frank Butterman's plot and all that, and they kind of catch him out as he like shoots the chandelier to escape, and he's just got that fucking lion roar that comes out in the middle of it.
That's bizarre, that bit.
But he's just his little face, his little like old.
He's got his akimbo gun set off there, and he's like hobbling back
whilst roaring like a lion. Like it's a full like universal of Lionsgate lion roar.
I think
yeah.
It's completely like royalty free.
Has anyone edited Frank Butterman roaring into the Lionsgate logo?
I think for me it's the attention to detail, like Kate said, but in a different area. So as soon as shit hits the fan in Hot Fuzz, and Nicholas Angel gets stabbed and he gets sent away to go back to London. Go back to London. As soon as he returns, every single line that Nicholas Angel now has from that point on until the ending is completely ADR'd. So it's completely like a trope of every 90s action cop thriller.
That's why his voice gets breathier.
Yeah.
So he sounds like the action hero now.
So yeah. I don't know what the first line. What the first line was?
No.
When he was getting.
This is something I've got to do myself.
Yeah. He's like, this is something I need to do myself.
Sir, is there anything I can do for you? Sir, is there anything I can do?
And it's like, it's fucking magical. Like they completely ADR'd every single line. It's like morning. And it's just like, I'm like, oh my god, and it does draw you in, to be fair.
It's great.
Because it does attach all the films that you've watched in this genre before, and it does trigger something in your brain.
You're straight in there for the action.
To go.
You're ready for it.
The action was so beautiful because the payoff was absolutely huge. You could tell everything was just like culminating to the fever pitch, and it was really fucking cool to just see absolute pensioners everywhere getting their asses handed to them, but giving it as well. And I just love that the escalation. And I don't know if it's like you don't really see this in like standard like Western films where it's like, okay, you've got your bad guy and the entire film is to just like defeat him, but it's like it just goes on and it just escalates, and there's an ending, and then there's another ending, and then there's another ending, and then there's a super ending, and it's just like there is no gear that this film cannot reach, and it should be nauseating, but because of the humour and because of how dumb it can be and how clever it can be in its storytelling, it doesn't get stale. It's just ending upon ending. Do you think once it ends there, it continues, and it doesn't have a right to?
But the thing with Hot Fuzz is when you feel an ending kind of approaching, even in yourself, you're like, well, I'm not done yet.
Yeah,
so it does it again, and you're like, yay, it's more.
I don't want it to end, and it's just nuts. As soon as the gunfight starts happening, the gunfight ends. It's like, okay, and then Frank gets involved, and it's like, okay, now we're starting, and then they get Frank as well at the end with the
Yeah.
swan, and that's a
Because
fantastic.
he drives
callback.
into the tree.
And
That's
then,
they win the day several times, and then it's like,
And
actually.
Pack it in, Frank, you silly bastard!
and then Skinner gets involved and gets his face wrapped around the church.
Oh,
Slipped and fell in his own van.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a little Summerfield time.
yeah. I think
Those
yeah.
detailing, like,
Yeah.
it's so good.
That's the thing that's refined from the first one, is that there's no line in this film has been wasted. There is no fat on this film whatsoever.
Danger can be anywhere, and that's revealed in not just Mr. Treacher's coat, but
Yeah.
every member of the
Every single member.
every single member. The picnic basket's full of guns.
It is a tentative. Sorry, not tentative. It is. It's, if you pay attention to this film, it's a good film standalone. But if you pay close attention to everything that's being said, not only does it increase, it shows character development or understanding of a character, what they're thinking at the time. It also reveals more of the plot.
Yeah.
It's very symmetrical.
I think every single line or action is either an instant joke or a setup for something.
But the thing is, they could be both as
But
well.
they could be both.
Because Aaron A. Aronson was
Aaron
just
A.
a
Aronson.
fucking killer joke, and then it actually
Just
manifested
never saw it coming.
into a better joke. And I'm just like, why would I want to learn how to write when someone's already doing it perfectly?
But you even get the moments that aren't jokes doing it, like when they're watching Bad Boys 2.
Yeah.
And Danny's there with his fucking remote.
Yeah.
And then at the end it's like, oh, he's got his moment, but now how bittersweet is that? So even then it's still funny, but it does give the depth to the characters that makes it like, oh, now he knows how it feels and I bet he doesn't want to, and you kind of...
He understands that action isn't everything anymore.
Yeah, and that shows him learning the lessons that Nicholas Angel's taught him the whole way through.
It's Danny learning the point of these action films, that a man pointing his gun to the sky and going, isn't just cool. You've got to understand that the emotional turmoil is still there, and Danny learns that.
Which is
cool. Police work isn't about action or shit.
Do you know why we call them the Andes?
They're both called Andrew.
All called Andrew.
And Parkinson's like, no, put struggling it down. Fuck off!
Danny.
There have been rumours of a sequel for Hot Fuzz.
Oh, don't tease me.
Would you want it?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I don't think they'd give it to someone random to do. I think it'd have to be the OG crew putting it together, or not at all. If I found out that, like Slaughterhouse Rules, it wasn't Edgar Wright or Nick Frost or Simon Pegg, I'd be like, alright, I'm not bothered.
See, that's the thing.
But if you get the trifecta back together, I'd trust it, because I think they'd all be...
I'd want the trifecta back together, but I wouldn't want it for Hot Fuzz.
You want something new?
Yeah, I think they thrive off originality, and when they revisit something,
True.
When they revisit something, it's never really as good unless.
I think that's why I find Baby Driver slightly disappointing. Is that I kind of wanted a cornetto heist.
Right.
As much as
To go
Baby
that
Driver
ridiculous.
is fantastic, it's so good, and the humour is there, but it's not as obviously front and centre as cornetto. I just think that'd be a really funny. Imagine the cornetto trilogy version of like Ocean's 11. Like.
Yeah.
I just want to. I want to see what that group of characters would be.
Oh, they do a heist film, like they do a legitimate heist.
Yeah, that's why Big Driver was always slightly disappointing to me, because it was just like, I know what I want, but this is good.
It's just a very, very stylized heist.
Never give someone what they want because they don't want it.
Yeah, it's very true.
Because they already, people don't know what they want, but
No.
so saying that I want that, I don't. But
I think that's how I felt watching Hot Fuzz for the first time. I didn't know what it was, didn't know what I was going into, and I was like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I'd never known it.
And it hurts now because that's the peak now. You've dropped off
Yeah.
the other side.
I remember being slightly concerned. I wasn't into horror films or anything. I had no idea what it was. And then when the first murder cropped up, I was like, what is this going on? Is it funny? Is it meant to be funny?
I was a bit zoned out at that point because I was like, I want this to be fun still forever, and now it won't be because people are dying, but it stayed just as funny.
Yeah, I thought it was going to take a dark, serious turn, and it just didn't. It twisted back on itself instantly. Like, every single murder has got a joke, whether it's in the setting, or the music, or just something that character has said earlier on, and that's how they die and whatever.
I just love the grungy music when all the pensioners are getting arrested and they're all just showing faces. And it's just like the way that they made everything exciting. They made the paperwork enthralling to watch. And I was just like, yeah. And it's just like,
I feel that's what it feels like. Edgar Wright challenged himself to be like, there would be paperwork, and I'm going to put that in, and I'm not going to make it it's not the scene where it's like contrast with how exciting this was to how boring it is now. They continue it to be exciting and interesting, and
like,
the paperwork
not
becomes.
a problem.
They just happen to be doing the paperwork in the background.
Yeah. I remember reading an article somewhere saying what was the most accurate films of people's respective professions or TV shows, and people went a Hot Fuzz, not because of all the action scenes at the end, but because they actually filed paperwork in it, which no buddy cop actually does. It just goes, we're going to shoot guns, and it's going to end, and then there's going to be a sequel where we shoot guns, and everyone's bigger than the law at that point for some reason.
This lacks a little bit of realism, Andy. From my understanding of processing someone, as we say, it can take up to about 20 minutes, half an hour, sometimes longer. And
he would be doing the night shift on that job, wouldn't he?
He would be booking in 6 people.
But then he is an exceptional officer.
He is, yeah.
If he can write with both hands, he's obviously doing twice the paperwork.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
I think even when including the mundane bits and pieces, there's no second of wasted time in that film.
No.
None of it drags, none of it's boring.
I mean, yeah, even when Angel hits the mother load, and he actually kind of goes, yeah, I know exactly what happened here, and I'm going to tell it to you right now. And it was just completely the right answer, but the wrong working. I was like, that is the most English thing I can think of. Like, it just breeds into conspiracy theories and just that kind of stuff. And he was like, yeah, actually, you were completely right. It's just, I just didn't like anyone, so I just killed them all because someone was leaving, and I was just like, this is perfect.
It's not even that complicated.
Petty old people.
If it sounds reasonable, it's more likely stupider than you think.
Think of the stupidest thing you can think of, and that's usually it.
Don't assume logic ever.
I apply the same thing to alien abductions. If it sounds reasonable, it's going to be way more stupid than you actually think it was.
I saw a tweet the other day. It's like I couldn't identify someone as a UFO because I didn't know what it was.
You can just see the chemistry between every member of the cast. Because even when they're just doing bits and pieces in the background. Like, my perfect Sunday.
It's everything. Like you've got the fucking poster, the whiteboard behind the incompetent cop.
Yeah.
Got the West Country accent farmer man, you just can't speak properly. It's like, sea mine!
It's a sea mine.
Okay.
He does for this one, yes.
How many people in Hot Fuzz have Oscars? Olivia Colman.
Olivia Colman?
I assume Bill Nye has. No, probably not. Maybe not.
Mark Freeman.
Maybe a
Mark Freeman's got one, hasn't he?
I think so. Hobbit, sure. Yeah, so Hot Fuzz is probably one of my favourite films of all time. I'd give it a strong 5 out of 10. Back to you in the studio.
Who's got a studio?
It's me, dickhead. I've got the studio. As we move on to the weather forecast. Rich! That's right, Rich. We move on to the weather forecast right now, and as you can clearly see, it's telling us there will be subscriptions across the board all over the country. It's gonna be a hot one, boss. In more news. Okay. All this and more in more news when you subscribe. Sub. Please.